All right, good morning, second grade students. Today for social studies, we are going to be looking at a map of Clarksville then and now. So to start off our lesson, let's remember that there are many kinds of maps out there. So maps show things such as cities, farm products, landforms, and waterways, natural resources, and also weather. So there is also another kind of map that we are going to be looking at today, and this is called a history map. And a history map shows a place as it looked in the past. So now we're going to look to the right and we're going to look at our map of Clarksville. So first we're going to take a look at the top map that we see. We see that this is a map from the past, and the reason that we can figure that out is because it says at the bottom, it says Clarksville 150 years ago. So just from that little blurb at the bottom, we know that this map is showing a past view of what Clarksville used to look like 150 years ago. So looking at this map, let's name some of the things that we see on this map. So one of the things that we see is that there are very few houses. So we see just a few houses on this map. So we see some back here and then some kind of up close, but otherwise, for the most part, we don't see a whole lot of houses on this map. We also see a man is in a wagon that is pulled by a horse. All right. So we see that life in Clarksville 150 years ago was pretty simple. And so from this map, we can conclude that Clarksville was probably a farming community 150 years ago. So now we're going to take a look at the map of Clarksville today. So we're going to be looking at the bottom map, and it says Clarksville today. So on this map, we're going to name the kinds of things that we see in the town. And then we're going to compare and contrast. So we're going to see what things are the same and what things are different between the two maps. So, for example, we notice that the placement of the bridge is the same in both of these maps. So we notice that the bridge has not changed where it was. And then now we're going to look at changes to the town. And so an example of that would be the bridge. So 150 years ago, we noticed that the bridge was a wood bridge. Whereas in the Clarksville today, we notice that the bridge is probably made of steel or of metal. So it didn't change where it was, but it changed from the 150 years ago to today. They changed it from a wood-covered bridge to a metal or steel bridge. We also notice in the 150 years ago map that there were wagons on dirt roads were seen in the past, but now we notice that it's cars that now drive on paved roads, whereas before we had the man with the horse pulling, and then we also see back here a man is on a horse also to get to where he needs to be. So we see those changes from those maps as well. Some of the other changes that we notice is that in the Clarksville today, we notice that there are a lot of really big buildings that have grown up, and we see probably less houses. We do see a guy down here mowing his lawn, and so these look like they could be houses, but otherwise a lot of big companies and businesses have moved in, or they could even be very tall apartment complexes because of how many more people are living in that area. So we talked about the past and the present, so now let's talk about the future for a second. So what are some things that we think we might see in the future of Clarksville? So some people might joke and say, maybe one day we'll have flying cars, or we'll have cars that drive themselves, or we'll have buildings that are very smart, very energy efficient buildings. We may have buildings that are better about protecting the environment and saving resources. And so that's something that as students right now, that is something that we even need to be thinking about, is our future, and how can we take what we had in the past and what we have now, and how can we use that to help make our lives better, or maybe even easier, even in the future. All right, so to wrap up our lesson today, let's look at our vocabulary. So our first word is future. So the future is the time that hasn't happened yet. So for example, tomorrow is in the future. Next, we have history map. And a history map shows what a place looked like long ago. And then we have the past. And remember, the past is the time that happened long ago. And then we have the present. So the present is the time that is happening right now. And lastly, our last vocab word is town. So a town is a place that has houses, schools, and other buildings. And a town is smaller than a city. All right, and that's where we're going to end today for our social studies lesson.